now we have AI generating user personas, suggesting feature prioritization, and even like crafting UX flows. So, does AI enhance human centered product management, or does it completely replace the human element?
Put it up front. Like there's coding tools for like coding with AI to develop apps too. Like, so does that mean that software engineers are not needed anymore? Right? Like it's the same. Product management is subject to more and more debate because
Hello and welcome everyone to another exciting episode of PITT Interviews. Today we are diving into how AI is reshaping enterprise growth, automation, and the role of product management. Because AI isn't just another tool, it's fundamentally changing how we work, what we optimize for, and even who is making the decisions. But is this revolution making things better, or are we trading creativity and intuition for efficiency and automation? Let's get into it. And who better to guide us through this transformation than the brilliant mind behind one of the most insightful case studies on this subject on PITT? So, joining us is Shyvee. Hey, Shyvee.
everybody,
Hey,
thanks for having me.
I'm sure everyone knows you, but before we get into the questions, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Shyvee. I lead a special community and product initiative right now at Microsoft Teams. I try to build an AI enthusiast program and community to allow people to learn more about AI in a fun and interactive way so that we don't feel like AI is just a silent job killer. So I leverage a series of growth tactics, marketing techniques, learning design, and of course, product management and user research combined with some of the latest AI to let people to have fun and play with AI. Prior to that, I led product at LinkedIn for the last 6.5 years, spanning across multiple different type of products from sales productivity tools to learning, LinkedIn Learning, and most recently in like the jobs and recruiter side of the house, also trying to grow into new segments within LinkedIn. I started my job being a consultant, so I am a career pivoter in that sense, if you can think about it, a journalist that spanning multiple different domains. So really excited to be here today to talk about AI. I've also been interviewing a lot of product leaders and company, builders. Some of them are related latest generative AI technology, including Orbit AI, which is one of the, uprising enterprise automation, company out there in the world trying to disrupt, company workflow efficiencies with AI. So I'm happy to be here to share, some of my personal perspectives on, the subject matter.
Thanks so much, Shyvee. And you guys can find Shivee's article on Orbis AI in the chat. I just dropped the link. So, Shyvee, I would love to jump straight into the questions if that works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I originally planned to dive straight into your case study on how Orbi is disrupting like enterprise growth with generative process automation. However, I thought it might be more valuable to start with some broader questions about AI and its impact on the role of product managers specifically. But that said, since our audience will be focused on the case study for now, I do want to make sure they fully understand the key concepts, particularly around generative process automation. So, for those who may not be familiar with this term, could you give us a quick overview of what JPA is and what kind of possibilities it opens up?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of us are more familiar with sort of the traditional robotic process automation, which is more rely on predefined rules and structured data. So, hey, if this is the scenario, go here. Like if this is the customer asks, like go here. So it's a very defined rules. You have like complex workflows that we define each step. Whereas generative process automation or GPA is the next evolution, which combines some of these RPA capabilities with generative AI so that it becomes much more adaptive and intelligent in the sense of like being more context aware. So in addition to, or instead of trying to define like very prescriptively, what are the rules and what are the tree branches, right? And the decision making tree on like where the workflows will go. Um, GPAs are going to be much more autonomous in generating dynamic processes based on real-time data, different conditions within the workflow or different customer scenarios. So reducing the needs for having to manually define all the workflow is over time reducing the manual intervention between human and machine. So it's a much more intelligent way of looking at, how to speed up the workflow or making, giving AI more autonomy in terms of making specific decisions in certain circumstances.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks for explaining this, Shivi. It really helps to understand how transformative it can be for enterprise growth and not only, as you mentioned. So now shifting the gears a bit to product managers. So product managers have always been the bridge between technology and users, right? Ensuring products are built around real human needs. But now we have AI generating user personas, suggesting feature prioritization, and even like crafting UX flows. So, does AI enhance human centered product management, or does it completely replace the human element?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. There's a lot of debate in the field around where does product management going to be involved. I think it actually happens for all jobs, not just product management. So let me put it up front. Like there's coding tools for like coding with AI to develop apps too. Like, so does that mean that software engineers are not needed anymore? Right? Like it's the same. Product management is subject to more and more debates because we're always at the center of holding all the, if the balls fall, like it's kind of your product manager's fault. So you're like a conduit that connects different pieces of the business together, both from the engineering to go to market to design, like data science. You're kind of the orchestrator in between. And that's the part that I feel like is the most essential for product management. So yes, the role is evolving with a machine able to help do a lot more of the day to day, like writing a PRD, doing feature spec, A/B testing, sometimes even speeding up, like what used to take months or weeks to write strategy document right now is much more streamlined. But I don't think that AI can completely replace human judgment and insight because, for example, user persona, AI can generate a set based on what it knows from its training data or what it observed online. But which one you're going to go after, how accurate does it represent real, true human needs? And human preferences and expectations keep changing, right? With AI coming into the picture. So a lot of that, you still need someone to steer that ship, if it makes sense. So I think PM's role is going to evolve more from a feature prioritization, roadmap planning to much more like curation, orchestration, AI oversight, staying ahead of the market. How do we know? How do we guide the AI to build the right thing? So it's much more a human AI collaboration. And, PM is still the conductor. But in this case, instead of just your cross functional partners, your team, your orchestra involves a lot of AI players as well. So how do you assign them to play their role and piece them together to grow a coherent strategy and narrative while injecting a lot of human judgment, ethics, creativity? It's still going to be at the core of that role.
Yeah, and maybe PMs in this case can focus more on strategy. And I've heard a lot of debates on this as well. Like people are saying if AI agents take over key aspects of product management, specifically decision making, how do we ensure they are not just reinforcing biases present in historical data, right? Could we risk AI optimizing for the wrong product decisions simply because certain behaviors or trends appear statistically dominant? Do you think
Yeah,
that's
yeah, that's possible. AI could potentially also increase homogenization among products, right? Because you're all following the same sort of UX rules, optimizing for engagement, not necessarily originality. So you might see more apps looking the same way or converging more around like uniform AI sounding, copy or UI, mirroring each other based on, what have historically worked. So therefore, I think a lot of this eventually will come down to who owns the distribution and who can preserve differentiation. And what does differentiation mean in the era of AI? So I think
Mhm.
human judgment and being able to think differently than commoditizing the experience is still going to be really important.
Yeah, that's a great point because AI doesn't operate in a vacuum. It learns from historical data, as you also mentioned. And if our past decisions were, let's call it flawed, AI just automates those same bad decisions faster, maybe, right? So, are we in danger of AI driven PMs becoming over reliant on AI generated insights without questioning them in this case? Are we just building a more efficient echo chamber?
That's a really good question. I do think it's a real risk, and it depends. Today, I think a lot of people are probably still in the round of not sure how best to prompt AI. So they might still get a lot of like a C graded or 60% answer and needing to tweak and iterate a few more times before it can get there. But for those who prompt really well, sometimes I read, some thought leaders online that shares how they structure their prompts, they can
Mhm.
get to a pretty good results. Even with one or two prompts. So AI is definitely getting a lot better, and AI is pretty good at decision making as well. Like I use AI sometimes to debate about different trade offs, different options, helping asking it to come up with a decision criteria, show me their walk me through step by step their thought process and why they chose certain things. And all I need to do is giving it some nudges, some weights, and pushing it towards a certain direction. But AI's natural tendency is to reinforcing what I call confirmation biases, or what you call echo chamber. It's sometimes agreeing with you a lot if you don't intentionally asking it to identify blind spots that you might overlook, asking you to challenge you, or holding you accountable for intellectual honesty. So AI can do those roles too when you prompt them, accurately. So I don't think that AI will have the final say in business decisions because human are still going to having more context, right? They
Mhm.
will, but a human can always also provide that level of context. Recently, I heard another thought leader talking about gossip to AI. So basically, you fit AI with all the context, right? Like around market conditions, around stakeholder dynamics, around competitive, landscape, and then asking AI to helping you weigh in or simplify your decision making process. You basically feed it with a success criteria of like, here's my first principle for making the decision. How would you think about trading off different set? So I think there's a lot still to be observed, and yeah, the risk is real, but I don't think that AI should have the final say in decision making. I think humans should still be in the driver's seats. That being said, AI is a great aid for helping you thinking through what decision to make, and the trade-offs and weighing in the options and pros and cons.
Yeah, we can't like train AI on a biased history and expect it to predict an unbiased future, right?
Yeah, I do think also it's case dependent. So for example, with agentic workflow coming in and ChatGPT launching operator and tasks, a lot of it is like, let's say if it's a day-to-day task. For example, every Sunday I do meal planning for my week, and my recipe, interestingly, or not so interesting actually, stays quite the same throughout the week. And
Mhm.
so every week I still spending like the 15-20 minutes planning for what grocery to buy, and then
Mhm.
placing the order on Instacart and having it come to me, and then chopping, the vegetables and the proteins. But all of that could be automated by AI. Do I need to make any decision in that process? Probably not so much. So
Yeah.
it's going to depend on, the use cases, what you're looking for. Are you optimizing for efficiency? Then AI is a great, partner in optimizing that entire workflow for you. But if you're looking for something, for example, if people are going for wedding planning, they're not going for like another vacation. You can fit AI the criteria that you want, but eventually for you to, let's say, build your dream wedding with your personal memory, you probably don't want the AI to automate everything, from beginning till the end. But let's say if you are like really tired, you just want a weekend getaway to Tahoe or something, to like book a ski trip, so things are pretty set, then you can give AI all your criteria, right? Like for what day, what time you want to leave, what kind of transportation, housing that you're looking for, what ski resorts. Yeah, AI can probably automate an entire workflow pretty soon. So,
Yeah.
so it's going to be use case dependent in many cases, I think.
Yeah, true. And if we take this to how it's going to change the PM roles, so if AI is making PMs less critical and more like, let's call it passive, does that mean we'll see a shift in what actually makes a great PM? Because traditionally, like good PMs are like great because of their intuition, stakeholder management, um, ability to synthesize different perspectives, let's say. But now with this GPA or AI that can analyze feedback, optimize workflows, and even manage certain PM tasks. So, what happens when we enter the AI first era of product management? Will the best PMs be the ones who know AI deeply, or the ones who resist AI and stick to fundamentals?
Yeah, I think first of all, PM should never be in a passive seat. I think PM needs to be actively driving the ship. So
Mhm,
I do think that when you're active, it means you anticipate what's coming, right? So you're always on top of things, and machine cannot get there yet because they're always looking backwards on data. So PM has to anticipate who are the stakeholders that needs to align. How is the market changing? How is the customer preferences shifting? So I do think that PM is still very much in that sort of captain role to like
mhm,
detecting the shifts in the market, both inside the company among various stakeholders as well as outside on competitive market when new models are coming out, when new things AI can do. So all the stuff that you mentioned about the fundamentals, like understanding user, uh,
mhm,
being able to, yes, synthesizing feedback is one, task that PM had to do. But how do you know which feedback is worth investing in? How do you validate that it is the right, level of ROI investment? Like all of that still need PM to kind of guide, the AI to think through structuring that and get it going. Um, I do think that what will change is a lot of the roles are going to be very blurry. Meaning, if you are engineer,
mhm,
but you stick to only the technical side, you're more subject to being disrupted. But if you are engineer who are very adaptable and very open to learn, if you're open to learning product mindset and product thinking, then that is where PM's a danger at that company because your engineer can essentially replace you. Also, similarly, if you are a PM who is non-technical and we're really good at the people side of the house, but now with AI changing, if you don't understand the risks of working with AI products and the and sort of the opportunities that it opens and expanded, then you will also get obsolete by people
mhm,
who understand both. So I think there's just a lot of going to be sort of roles blurring, coming together, and one person can do a lot more. That kind of so speaking more on a soft skill turn, people who can adapt, who can be jack of all trades. Right now, the market is strongly flavoring specialization, right? Because we need AI to be able to do the plumbing work well. But I do anticipate in 2 to 3 years, it's going to be more trending towards journalists who can do a lot of things. So PM who can code, who can share design, who can drive alignment, who can potentially drive go to market. Um, Sam Altman shared his three observation that by 2035, he claims that any human will basically have any sort of intelligence at your fingerprint. So what the workforce will look like then is going to be very different from what it is now. So I think there's going to be the winners are going to be people, PMs right now that have technical skills that really understand AI, but also
Mhm.
have been learning a lot about business. So they are the clear winner in this market right now. And then the
Yeah.
second are people who really understand the business side, the user, and then are very quickly learning the technical side, right? The third group that's going to overtake PM are engineers who are very good with AI and are really learning fast and using AI to grasp all the best practices and product and growth and quickly testing them themselves and getting that business acumen inside their technical repertoire. So those are the three groups of people that I think are going to be the future of PM.
Yeah, it's very similar to the take that Akash Gupta had in his article on PITT. He was also saying that AI won't replace PMs, but PMs that use AI will replace the ones that don't use AI in their work. So that's a very similar take. I talked about this subject with Barty Jaworski yesterday, but I also want to ask you the same question, because so generative AI can design interfaces, write marketing copyright, even like create user journeys, or like it's endless the possibilities. But if AI is optimizing for what works the best, do we risk all products looking, sounding, and feeling the same and losing cultural and also contextual differences?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes and no. I think there's a couple layers to answer that question. I think
Mm,
first, the initial stage, yes. You might see a lot of copies sounding very similar. Like right now, I like reading LinkedIn posts. I can be like, ah, yeah, that post is generated by AI because I tried a couple of times and that sounded pretty similar. Like just think about that for UI as well. So yes, I think that's going to be the first wave. But then what will very quickly happening is that people will get jaded to some of these like very generic robotic sounding, even though it sounded like human at the beginning. But once you understand that, so then it will actually, I think the second phase, two hypotheses are going to happen. And one is companies will consolidate, right? The ones that owns the distribution. So there will be probably a handful of big owners, like the Apple and GPT that owns the distribution people, the user base. They will basically take in more and more of the workflow power. So, for example, people have been really worried about what
mhm.
if ChatGPT just take over, just search, and agentic workflow can do all the hotel booking, Airbnb booking, like Instacart shopping for you. Then what does it mean? Like, do you still need like TripAdvisors or, like Expedia or all these other tools? Do you need Google, right? Or you just
Mhm.
gonna go to this one portal and then do all that search from this one single or a couple sources. So if you go shopping, you go to Amazon, but even if ChatGPT one day can do all of that too, right? Like, so
Yeah.
are we going to enter a phase where it's going to be basically UI less or there's no user interface?
Mm,
Voice, just like the movie Her is going to be the dominant form of interaction. We're still like a couple years from that, but I think there's a lot of push on that, and companies that holds the distribution is going to have a natural advantage. So you're going to see more and more ChatGPT wrappers that might hit for a while, but went down. So company does have an existential crisis there. Um,
mhm.
on the other side, though, I do think that since more and more things are going to get homogeneous, and then AI is going to automate more and more workflow, it's going to free up more and more people to invest in their creativity. So on the other side, there could be sort of thinking about Renaissance, era, right? Like where you have artists painting a lot of different genres, creating new styles. I think we might also see a lot of micro communities or micro user groups surfacing. So, for example, fashion is a good example to think about, right? Like instead of mass fashion, maybe you have people who are wearing athletic leisure wear that's focused on specific themes, or people who are interested in sustainable fashion blended with cultural references. So like much more niche needs in our day to day. So to make us human live in a more flourishing way of like not just consuming mass consumption goods, but actually injecting personality into our day to day. I'm speaking more from a consumer lens in that
Mhm.
sense. From an enterprise perspective, again, those who owns distribution will have a big win. I do think there's going to be a lot more verticalization, meaning that companies that specialize in healthcare, for example, are going to get real good than a general
Mhm.
purpose, LLM. So there are a couple industries we'll see quite a bit shifts, like in healthcare, biochemistry, in legal, accounting. So comp- industries that's traditionally being really manual, I think are going to see a lot of disruptions for automation, for intelligence. So those are kind of the exciting side. Like maybe we will finally make breakthrough on cancer drugs, diagnosis, and stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's definitely both risk and also a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. How about like streaming services? Because one example that came into my mind right now is like Netflix or Spotify AI recommendations. Because after a while, their recommended content, everything like starts blending together, right? So if AI is making product decisions at scale, how do we prevent a future where every SaaS platform looks like a slightly different version of the same AI generated template, like in those recommendations? Do we need human intervention to maintain originality?
Yeah, I think I reserve my observation on that. I do think that there's two layers of similarity and observation. So one is the algorithm that underlying the platform that's recommending people are augmented based on your tastes. And so a good example is TikTok, which captures, using a lot of micro text to capture your taste and recommending similar content. Like, for example, I feel like right now when I visit my Instagram feed, it's all about like cute dogs and cats. Just because I click on a couple cute dogs and cats video, and it's all about that, right? And in the past it was like cooking videos because during COVID I was learning a lot about cooking. So I think it's up to the human to decide like how much. Sometimes I do enjoy seeing those things as an escapism from work, but sometimes you do want your feeds to be more diverse and
Yeah.
exposing you to interesting material. But I do think there's also an underlying like what type of content are being produced, right? You mentioned about all the streaming services, like Apple TV, Hulu, HBO, Netflix are all creating their own original content as well. So there's algorithms that does try to blend like freshness and diversity, and then there's like algorithm that centers around people like you like this or based on your past taste. So I think um, there's different pros and cons to it, and then there's different UIs potentially showcase people like if you prefer to try out newer things, here are some new stuff. But if you
Mhm.
want to just double down on what you like, here's what we recommend. So I think we can be intentional in the product decision to expose that. Sometimes as human though, I do think that we tend to also fit into like a confirmation bias again, or fall into the habit loop of like consuming things that that are similar tastes. So I knew, for example, for a matter of fact, that my last three TV shows on these streaming platforms were all around crime and detective shows, because that's like my favorite genre. And I've been like favoring that over a
Mhm.
lot more other stuff. So I think, yes, it's the responsibility of some of these tech companies, but it is also, you know, we as human needed to kind of intentionally make that decisions. One other example that's
Mhm.
prevalent, and I don't know how much people are bothered by it. Like sometimes I feel like I don't bother by it as much, but it's sad. Is when you go to a restaurant, like in the US, Yelp, and increasingly Google Maps are becoming sort of the go-to. You will go there, check out the restaurant rating, check out which dishes are being recommended for that restaurant, and you basically go there and take those dishes, right? So you kind of surrender the human serendipitous, find to whatever AI recommends based on popular taste. Um, so again, that's a deeply personal decision. Some people might like that, especially if you're traveling, you're going to this restaurant, you booked, a couple weeks in advance, or you waited for a long time. You want to try the best dish. And sometimes people might have similar taste. Some people value unexpected encounters, so they don't want machine to guide their decision, and they suffer less of FOMOing when you're facing those decisions. So I think it's also a very personal choice of how much you let AI to
Yeah.
make decisions for you. Some of it is unexpected, like on subconscious too. Like you just kind of get used to the AI doing those things.
This reminds me of self-driving cars, technically, because AI can drive better than humans, right? But would you trust it in an emergency? I wouldn't. So it's kind of
Yeah.
uh, this. So this has been such an interesting discussion, Shivi. Thank you so much because AI is transforming product management in real time. And as we discussed, some PMs will become AI first, some will double down on human first skills, and some will get left behind entirely. So, Shivi, this was incredible. Thanks for sharing your insights. Do you have anything to add before we wrap up?
I would just leave with the advice. I think everybody is saying that right now, is that AI won't replace you, but those who use AI will. So keep trying, keep experimenting with AI, and focus on what you can control, which is, keep showing up, keep learning. Because I know this day and age, especially leading a community that runs a lot of these AI programs, I do see firsthand how a lot of people do get discouraged or overwhelmed by AI. It's actually a really real fear, and I want to tackle it heads on. I think, no one is immune to it. Just relax the anxiety and try to ride with it. Try to play with AI, show up, do your best. And yeah, and embrace
Thanks so
the
much,
unknown,
Shivi.
unknown.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm going to put you on backstage for now. And thank you, our amazing audience, for tuning in. If you found this discussion valuable, make sure to check out Shiva's article for even more insights. I dropped the link in the chat. And as always, stay ahead of the curve with PITT interviews, your go to source for the latest trends in AI, automation, and product innovation. We have got 2 live interviews every week this month, and I'm gonna just drop the link to sign up for these interviews in the chat. So here is the link. Okay, so don't miss out. There is so much more to dive into. And thanks again, everyone, and see you next time. Take care.